Good evening, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about instrument technical bid evaluation process. What is technical bid evaluation? How it is carried out? What are the key requirements? And why it is important in the complete procurement cycle? That is to be discussed today, and and how to carry out the technical evaluation of various bids, various quotations, how to evaluate them, and how to see that it complies to the technical and commercial requirements of the project as per specified in the purchase order, and what are the key requirements and how it is to be ensured that the vendors who are submitting their bid are technically suitable, technically they qualify as per the technical requirements of meeting the project requirement specified in the PR. So what is technical bid evaluation? Definition and core objective. Technical bid evaluation is a formal documented process for analyzing the vendor's technical proposal to ensure it aligns perfectly with the project engineering requirement. It is the gatekeeping phase that prevents substandard or non-compliant equipment from entering the project life cycle. In EPC world, a TB is not just a checkbox exercise, it is a risk mitigation strategy. So we will know about why it is a risk mitigation strategy and what are the 5 pillars of comparison. First, to perform the professional technical bid analysis or technical bid evaluation, the lead engineer must evaluate the offer against the following documents. So remember that this responsibility of evaluating vendor offer is left to the lead engineer. It is his responsibility or sub lead who have the experience and technically qualified to understand each aspect of critical requirements of the project, aligning the project with the vendor offer, how it is to be done. So it is not a role of a junior engineer or an engineer to evaluate and recommend and perform the technical bid evaluation. So first of and foremost is the material requisition. So material requisition, which is converted into project purchase requisition, that is the main document which is to be referred to. So purchase order or purchase requisition is the first one. Then project specification, the global standards, the project standards, and the compliance to the project specification. Instrument data sheet, precise process conditions, material of construction, and performance parameters. International codes and standards. International codes and standards will play a vital role in, in evaluating the technical bid evaluation. It without meeting the code requirements, the offer cannot be accepted. And finally, the client requirement. Any specific specification, client requirement, general specification, or project functional requirement, that is the project specification and the client requirement that are mandatory, that overrides the standard code. So if there is a client requirement which overrides the project, which overrides the codes and standards governed by the international codes or cell, like cell DEP has got, cell has its own project codes which are specific uh, specific standards which are more stringent than the international codes and standards, and that is specific to the project related to shell. So those are that will be a overriding factor. So these are to be known. And one more important thing is the statutory and regulatory requirement. So that has to be complied. So that requirement is not spelled out here, but I am writing it, telling you all that any country where your project is going to be executed, the statutory and regulatory requirements need to be met, and compliance of that is to be obtained from the vendor. Without that, in that country, the performance vendor cannot be selected and it cannot be evaluated. Outright rejection will occur in case they don't meet the statutory and regulatory requirements. 4 qualities of successful technical bid analysis or technical bid evaluation. Technically clear bid must guarantee. What are the guarantees it should have? Technical compliance, it meets the requirement of the specifications. Safety, it does meet the hazardous area classification and the SIL ratings as specified in the data sheet and specification sheet. Reliability and operability, it can work for plus 20 years of operation, easy for plant operator to calibrate and use, and maintainability. Are spare parts localized? Does the vendor provide necessary specialty tools for maintenance? That also includes after sales service. If the vendor can not provide support after sales for any problem with their equipment supplied or the instrument supplied, that may be a uh, bottleneck for placing the order on the vendor. So compliance does not just mean yes to the data sheet. It means verifying the vendor's standard product hasn't compromised on specific project exceptions. A vendor might claim compliance but hide the deviations. In note section or 200-page proposal, TB is where to hunt those hidden deviations. So if there is a big proposal and you have to search for all the deviations which vendor has taken, so it is the responsibility of the lead engineer to hunt and see where all they are deviating and whether that deviation is acceptable to the lead engineer or whether that is deviation is acceptable to will be acceptable to client or not. What is the technical bid evaluation? The sequence of event. First phase, front end engineering design phase, basic engineering. That is the basic engineering design basis. Second phase, detail engineering. So in this phase, the finalization of P&ID, sizing calculation, and detailed data sheet. Phase 3, the MR preparation. Then phase 4, the bid invitation by the procurement team. And phase 5 is the technical bid evaluation. Commercial evaluation, phase 6, and purchase order is phase 7, and vendor document review is phase 8, factory acceptance test is phase 9, and dispatch is 10. So this is the same thing which we have explained above. So it goes from the feed defines the basis. The detail engineering details out all the data sheets, specification, calculations, and the P&ID. The material requisition compiles the material package for the vendor. Then bid invitation is the procurement issue for RFQ for approved vendor as per approved vendor list. Technical bid evaluation is engineers review on technical offer and exchange of TQ. Purchase order is of then it commercial evaluation and technical evaluation. They go side by side. Commercial team evaluates the commercial terms and conditions and negotiation after the technical bid evaluation is completed. Then purchase order, the formal contract award to selected vendor. Then vendor document review. This is by the engineering team to see that they are procuring the items as specified in the purchase order. And then factory acceptance test to validate, verify the hardware against the TB cleared specs at factory. Then further it is the dispatch from the instrument or the equipment dispatches and leaves the factory to site. Why the sequence matter? No rule. If commercial evaluation should ideally never conclude before technical clearance. Buying a cheap instrument that doesn't meet the process temperature rating is catastrophic EPC failure. TB is the baseline for FAT. If the requirement has missed during TB, you cannot legally enforce it during FAT without change order. So if you have missed any point in the technical bid analysis and not clarified from the vendor, and vendor is not bound to give at during FAT stage, you find it out that this is missing. At that stage, vendor is not bound to supply you with the item. Only that will impact a change order as well as delay in the delivery and impacting on the project schedule and finally the final delivery to the client. So this sequence is very important, so it has to be maintained. Slide 4, inputs required before TB. What are the inputs required for the TB? Approved data sheets, specific instruments details. Without approved data sheet, you cannot procure the instrument. In instrument index, track and log the quantity of tag numbers and quantities are to be matched. P&ID, IFC, and IFA issued for construction or issued for approval. Master reference for piping. hookup drawings, critical for scope of supply, specifications, global project requirement, control philosophy, how to complex items should fail, how complex items should fail, especially for complex items like control valve or MOV, how should it fail? What is the stroking time? All these things are very important. And cell requirement. If the loop is a safety critical, the SRS safety requirement specification is mandatory import for TB. The common commercial boundary, commercial imports. While we don't look at the price, we but respect the framework. Approved vendor list. The vendor is from approved vendor list. That is, without approved vendor list, they are if the vendor is not approved, their bid is not considered. Bidders list. A specific shortlisted list of vendor invited for this package. So bidders list is the list from the vendor. Out of, if there are 10 vendors from a for a particular items, which are the vendors to which you will send the quotation. The procurement will send the issued for bid document. This is a specific short list of vendor invited for this package. For particular package, certain vendors are logistically decided that this will serve that area, purpose. If it is Europe, European vendors will be given priorities, or if it is the Middle East, then there may be some local vendors in the who are supporting the manufacturing unit and giving sales and service, after sales service. Those may be shortlisted and then quotation to be placed on that, so that we can evaluate 3 to 4 maximum vendors, not evaluate the quotation for 10 vendors. Client division list. Often a client has already rejected certain technologies or brand in previous project. So we must ensure that vendor isn't offering something already blacklisted. So suppose certain design, certain part of the component, like in one of the projects, the wellhead panel in the offshore platform, I witnessed that as per the specification, the internal fittings, pneumatic fittings of the panels are specified as per the contract document, and our specification was purely SS316. And when the vendor submitted the offer, they offered a brass fittings. So that was not acceptable, and the vendors had to justify and revise their quote to meet the requirement. So these are certain items which may miss out during evaluation stage, and later on it during FAT or during site acceptance test, or even if it is missed, then the failure at site performance during operation and maintenance will create a lot of cost. So this is we have to avoid such. So approved vendor list or approved manufacturers list is the binding, the document issued by the client. Why is approved vendor list critical for TB? Contractual compliance, because in contract with the client, we have already accepted the approved vendor list. Asset standardization. Client wants the same spare part across their refineries to reduce inventory cost. So they want to asset standardization so that spare parts can be, if required, can be brought from one of their own refineries to another. If the vendor delivery period for the spares are longer and the plant is suffering for shutdown, the deviation burden. If you want to use the vendor not on the list because they are 30% cheaper or must have a better lead time, you must submit a formal technical deviation request to the client. This requires substantial justification and often delays the project. So, deviation, if required, can be, and getting a non-approved vendor into the vendor list is an action which is to be taken upfront before preparing the specification. As you know that this vendor can meet the specifications, meet the mm, cost, some supply logistics, but though they are not uh, in the vendor list, so get that vendor approved. But otherwise, it takes a longer period and client may reject it also. Practical example table. These are some control valves, radar type transmitters, pressure transmitters, PLC, DCS. They are the standard approved vendors for all worldwide various projects. So it is very important to understand during the bid and evaluation that verify the manufacturer location. Vendor may be on approved vendor list, but only for their factory in Germany, not their new facility at a different region. Check the footnote of the approved vendor list carefully before the technical bid evaluation. This is important because uh, it may in some country it may be approved, in some country it may not be approved because of certain reasons, or if they have five manufacturing factories and the factory which is near meets the requirement of or technical requirement and they are in the approved vendor list, and see the note and then approve it, then place the inquiry is to be placed by the procurement, and then technical bid evaluation can be done. Material requisition package content. What does the mechanical equipment or instrument package contains? So yesterday I have discussed about this. It covers the cover sheet, scope of supply, clear scope of supply and exclusions, the battery limits, the data sheet, the technical heart of the process, giving the process conditions, the MOC and the electrical rating on every tag, project specification, the general rule, the ITP inspection and test plan, vendor data requirement, the list of documents and drawings which the vendor will provide during detail engineering, manufacturing data record requirement of final as-built dossier, packaging and tagging specify how item must be created, seaworthy packing, or how the stainless steel tags must be engraved. Project QAQC requirement defines the quality level, ISO certification or material test certification, or any corrosive component certification like NACE, compliance, etc. So this is the same thing which has been explained in the flow chart. You can go through that. Why the MR quality matters? A loose material requisition leads to loose bid. If you are providing your material requisition which has got loopholes and not properly prepared, then it will lead to loose quality of MR, and then it will be difficult to evaluate, because vendor will quote with standard. Suppose if you don't specify the ITP or packing requirement in the MR, the vendor will quote their standard and then charge you with extra fees when you ask export packing or witnessing testing later on. Suppose you don't include factory acceptance test in your MR, and later on you want to add it, you want to witness the test, then there will be extra cost, and that will delay the decision, and that will impact the project. So the importance of issue status of the documents. What documents you should refer to evaluate the vendor and see before the material requisition is issued? What are the key gateways to achieve that the MR is fully complying to the technical requirements of the project? So first stage is the IFA, purpose, review by client or consultant, IFC, final version for site team, the issued for construction, and IAP, that is the issued, approved for purchase, gold standard for TB. So that is in approved for purchase. That is the document which you must refer. Risk. What will be the risk? IFA stage, if you issue the MR, subject to change based on comments. IFC stage, final for site, but ordering may proceed. But and issued for purchase is the process data and the mechanical interface locked. So that is the gold standard. And the status, IFA is work in progress, IFC issue final at site, and IAP is frozen for procurement. So IAP document is subset of design that has been frozen specifically for procurement cycle. It signifies that the process data and the mechanical interfaces are locked in for vendor to manufacture. So this is the important stage. Don't issue the material requisition at IFA stage where changes will occur. The golden rule for TB, only IAP documents that are issued for purchase document are to be considered for evaluation, bid evaluation, because there all the specifications are locked and no more changes are expected. So the vendor can submit their bid according, giving their technical requirements as well as the commercial requirements commercial cost, and it will avoid in rebidding if the changes come at a later stage. Always, when procurement issues the material requisition to the vendors, there are always in large scale project there is a two bid quotation. Two bid is one is the technical bid which is submitted for evaluation, technical evaluation, compliance to data sheet, drawings, compliance to standards and experience list, and commercial bid contains the price, payment terms, and commercial bank guarantees. Sometimes what happens that first the technical bid is submitted for big projects, technical bid is evaluated, and the approved vendor, suppose two vendors are approved out of four vendors which have been evaluated. Those from those two vendors only the price bid is the commercial bid is obtained at a later stage after technical queries have been uh, raised by during evaluation are complied with and it is successfully recommended for purchase, then the procurement team will invite the commercial bid only to the technically approved selected vendor successful is evaluated and approved for purchase those vendors only and get their price for final negotiation. Price, delivery, terms and conditions of payment and commercial bank guarantees, etc. Process, handling process. The procurement is the centralized received all bid. This is the centralized receipt of all bids. Firewall. The procurement logs the bid, but subsequently the commercial envelope is in secure location, locked in digital folder. So the commercial bids are locked. They are not opened till the technical bids are recommendations have come from the technical team. The technical distribution, technical copies are distributed to lead instrument engineers, and bid register creation, a formal tracking document is created, and bid register listing, vendor's name, receipt date, time, number of copies, and missing documents are listed. So bid register is maintained by the procurement. This is the activity of the procurement and the instrument team during the bidding stage. Here, the technical copies are distributed to the lead instrument engineers by the procurement team. Why the discipline matters? As a veteran, you know that if engineer knows vendor A is 20% cheaper than vendor B, they might subconsciously soften their technical critics to fit the budget. So, digitally locked and commercial bid are not opened in a closed envelope. It is kept locked. Previously, hard copies were submitted, and then it was the bids are commercially evaluated only after technical evaluation. By keeping the technical evaluation blind to the price, we protect the safety and integrity of the plant. So, initial screen and checklist. So, that is the purpose of screening. Before spending 10-20 man hours on detailed review by the lead engineer, no go check is performed. If the bid fails the screening, it returns to the procurement as non-responsive. Critical checkpoints. What are to be checked? Non-responsive status. What makes a bid non-responsive? First, I have to check that vendor is an approved vendor list. Second, it is to be checked that the bid submitted before deadline. Third is all documents submitted. Does the bid include the GA drawing, wiring drawing, and specialty certificate as ATEX and SIL? Then data sheet, whether they have filled the data sheet and complied with the uh, dimensional drawing, GA, and etc. and compliance sheet attachment, point-to-point confirmation against our project specification. Deviation list included. This must be important document if the vendor claims zero deviation, but technical bid suggests otherwise. It is a red flag to the evaluator. Please note that lead engineer will not accept a technical bid without any technical detail, just writing that I am complying to the technical and commercial requirements of the bid and I meet the requirement of the data sheet. I comply to all and every project specification like this type of one para and then submitting a commercial bid is non-responsive status. Don't go only by words. It is to be complied clause by clause, point by point, and these are whatever with the bid, whatever vendor documents are required to be submitted, they are submitted in compliance to the MR requirement. If they have not, then it is to be rejected. What are the key comparison parameters which are important? Process data versus offer. So process data has to be matched with the offer. Pressure and temperature rating, that will be very operating conditions, and we also check the design and the ambient conditions. MOC, material of construction, the weighted part, and also the flange rating. Accuracy and repeatability meets within the desired accuracy and repeatability and of the span or the rate. Does it meet the project measurement uncertainty requirement? Hazardous area compliances, whether they are providing equipment which is certified, which can be certified on particular hazardous requirement as per hazardous requirement, as well as the temperature classes specified in the project specification and data sheet. SIL compliance, safety loop, we verify the vendor provide a valid SIL certificate and PDS product data sheet for PFD average calculation. And also is the statutory and regulatory requirement. Without that, the key parameters are other comparison parameters are the list of deviation vis-a-vis they have spelled out the list of deviation, they have spelled out the exclusions in case they have vendor is unable to supply certain items as specified in the MR and they have put in the exclusion list. So all this is the point which needs to be checked before and then it is to be accepted. So first and foremost is this the technical bid evaluation. We prepare a comparison table matrix, which on the left side, all the technical parameters are written, key technical parameters, and then 3 or 4 columns where each vendor's data is to be tabulated. So, and then it is, once all this TB format is filled fully, evaluating all the first round of evaluation at putting on the datas of the vendor provided data with respect to technical data, which are the key requirements for evaluation. They are matched, and in one go you can see the total, which vendor is complying or which vendor has got deviation, because against each parameter, each vendor's offer is reflecting. So that gives a comparative side-by-side comparison. It tells exactly where the vendor meets, exceeds, or fails the project requirement. The technical parameters, the baseline, the vendor column, and the remarks column at the end, at the side, where you flag risk or clarify why deviation is acceptable or not. Never let a vendor fill out this for you. So don't send it to vendor that you please fill up. No, it has to be filled up by the engineer, senior level engineer or the lead level engineer. They will write okay for everything as per EPC engineer. You must populate the vendor column based on review of their catalogs and drawings. This ensures that you are actually read the fine print. So sometimes it is the model number is mentioned in the against the instrument selected. So for that model decoding of the model number, you have to go to vendor's catalog submitted along with the bid and see that the model decoding matches your specification, and accordingly you will evaluate. So like that, this is the table, which is example where parameters are written. Only 2-3 parameters have been written for to explain the example. Range, accuracy, MOC. Range is 0, required is 0 to 10 bar. Vendor okay, vendor B okay, both meets the process needs. So if you write okay, better to write 0 to 10 bar, 0 to 10 bar. Accuracy plus minus 0.1. Vendor A is giving plus minus 0.15%, and vendor B is meeting the requirement 0.1. So vendor A does not meet the precision requirement of the specification or MR. And like this, MOC SS316 is required. Now this vendor A has given SS316L is required and has given 6 SS316, and vendor B has given SS316L. I suggest you write down SS316L. That will comply that yes, this vendor has. Don't write OK. So OK is also acceptable, but better to write the complete the specification MOC. So vendor A has got a deviation. So you see, vendor A has got 2 deviations, and then you must not consider this vendor A for technically suitable vendor. Vendor B is technically suitable. So hazardous area compliance, this is the 100% compliant. It should be 100% compliant. If it is not, then reject the vendor. Critical verification point. So all this, as the project will specify IEC or NEC requirement, whether it is a North American requirement or NEC requirement or IEC certification, ATEX certification is required, and vendor must meet the certification requirement. Then they must meet the gas group, whether it is 2B versus 2C. Don't accept any lower, but higher can be accepted. So better, you see, if the process and the area contains hydrogen and acetylene on instrument rated only ethylene, instead of group where the requirement is acetylene and hydrogen, that is group 2C, vendor has quoted for group 2B, then it is not acceptable. So it vis-a-vis, if it is vendor is giving group 2C, that is the requirement, then it is acceptable. Temperature class, we check the maximum surface temperature of the device. If the auto ignition temperature of the gas is low, we may require T6, 85 degrees. If the vendor offers T3, the bid is technically rejected. So it has to meet the temperature class. IP rating, for the environment protection, environment, harsh environment, IP 6667 as minimum for outdoor, offshore, or during the near seashore refineries, IP 6660. So that must meet the requirement of ingress protection, and enclosure material must be complying to the project specification. Providing aluminum, die-cast aluminum is not sufficient where SS316 is required, or copper-free aluminum with epoxy coating is required as per the project specification. Functional safety audit. When the instrument is part of safety loop, the TB must transition into the functional safety audit. You are verifying that the device meets IEC 61508 for manufacturers and IEC 61511 for integrated standards. Critical seal documentation. Seal certificate is required. Then second is the probability of failure on demand document is required based on standard proof test interval, usually 1 year. Vendor must provide the calculations. Fail-safe fraction. This is important. For SIL 2, we typically look for SFF greater than 60%. For type B, complex device like smart transmitters. FMEDA report, failure mode, effect, and diagnostic analysis. This is the technical soul for device. It provides the failure rate. Without this, the safety contractor cannot run the project verification calculation. So it is vitally important to note this for SIL documentation. Proof test interval, if it is required, that proof test is every 3 months or every 6 months as to maintain the cell rating, that must be done, or every 5 years sometimes, that must be done at shutdown stage. So if the vendor does not provide the proof test interval as desired by the cell requirement, then you are they are not meeting the uh, total cell criteria and may be rejected. So it has to be complied with. So these are the very gate way for evaluation of the vendor offer. Uh, Sales certification is very important as hazardous area classification and ingress protection. Mechanical and process interface review, a interdisciplinary bridge. Instrumentation is the most social discipline APC. In APC, a successful TV requires you to step out of the instrument bubble and talk to other leads. If you are verifying that the vendor has offered plug-in correctly to the rest of the project. So what happens that while evaluating, if you require to discuss with the piping or discuss with electrical, you need to verify certain points with electrical, like in motor operated valve, a vendor has given some motor rating and requirements which needs a evaluation by the electrical team. The TB is to be complied with by providing the quotation copy to the electrical team for their review and evaluation. So without that, it is not complete. So you please remember that any department which requires, like mechanical will require, if it's a pump, it will coordinate with electrical as well as coordinate with the instrument. That is the package review. We will discuss about the package bid evaluation separately once we discuss the packages. So that is why interdisciplinary bridge is to be maintained. In case any bid vendor has given some requirement of panel which is big enough and requires space which covers some space near the tapping point, then it has to be reviewed by piping, and it is to be checked in 3D model whether that panel is acceptable, or what vendors are giving, if that panel is provided by all the vendors or they have given other options. So these need to be looked into before uh, interfaced with piping, interfaced with electrical, interfaced with other HSC team and safety team before final evaluation and technical recommendation. Coordination is the key point. So this is the process data validation. This is it has to be validated. Mechanical nozzle and flange compatibility, piping, tapping and orientation, as well as the straight line requirement in case of flow meters and large control valve weights, operating weight and dry weight both are to be can be considered for necessary piping supports. Civil and the mounting details, structural loads for heavy analyzer house or large valves, etc., where foundation and supports load data is to be given for proper support by the civil department.